Welcome to the Self-Help Coaching Podcast, where insights, attitudes, and methods for success get illuminated. Learn what leaders and change workers have done and are doing now to create magnificent futures. We interview great guests who inspire you to overcome obstacles and achieve your goals. Be sure you visit our website at self-helpcoaching.com. While you're there, subscribe to us via your favorite network. Now, just relax as you listen. You can do something else, but be ready to make an important note. And let's get started.
The title of this interview is Grow Your Life Skills, Grow Your Business. My guest is a visionary leader and entrepreneur with proven business skills and demonstrated expertise in a variety of companies and industries throughout his career, from Wall Street to commercial real estate, to medical devices and information technology. He is the founder or co-founder of several for-profit companies and not-for-profit organizations, and has decades of experience in raising capital, high-stakes negotiation, project management, building teams, and business development. Companies include CytoSorbents Incorporated, a $400 million publicly traded medical device company treating critically ill and cardiac patients, including COVID-19 patients, and distributed in 67 countries globally. Game On Golf Center, a high-tech enabled golf training center and real estate development project on 32 acres in Westchester County, New York. NYC Basket Brigade, feeding families in need in New York City and Westchester County. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you Frank Clark. Hello, Frank.
Hello, Tony. Thanks so much. Pleasure to be here. Nice to see you again.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. We're going to talk about communication and relationship strategies to grow your business, as well as strategies for raising capital and mergers and acquisitions. By the way, I don't mind saying that, Frank, I contacted you a little over a year ago when my financing ran out with my financier. I had to make a new decision about what I was going to do for the capital for my startup. And you were one of the people I contacted because I know about you.
Was I helpful?
Well, you said, get back to me. And I got back to you once, but that was still not a good time for you. And so the meeting never happened, but that's on me. That's not on you. Follow-up is king in business and sales. I don't care. Right. So that was, the burden was on me. But what I don't mind telling you, what we pivoted to crowdfund, but then it was such a wash. We weren't ready, on numerous levels. And so I renegotiated with the development company so that I can start an operations even with my debt, and I'll pay back their debt once I have revenue. So we're gonna be launching very soon in about 7 weeks. But
by the way, what you just said is very, very important for people to understand, especially entrepreneurs who are struggling trying to bootstrap. Because one option when you have debt, let's say you've tried to bootstrap and you've put things on credit cards or personal loans with friends and family, etc., and you're trying to figure out how to pay that all off, and you're not coming up with options like crowdfunding or raising capital or getting a bank loan, and you're not finding a solution in the short term. I mean, one option is you can always renegotiate with the people that have already lent you the money, because they are already owed money. They have already financed you. They've already funded you and believed in you once, and you want to show good faith. So sometimes that's like being able to make some small payments. Sometimes it's like renegotiating an interest rate or extending payments over a long term. So one source of financing is the people who are already financing you, people who have already given you money, and just restructuring your payments and letting them know that you do intend to repay, that you are acting in good faith, and you're, working hard to, get everything back in order. And if we could just renegotiate these terms, it will make it more likely that I can, meet the obligations and get back in good standing with you. Does that make sense?
That's what I have found. I'm often redeemed because while I've been an entrepreneur a long time, I've hardly ever made a profit. and,
Yes, it's one thing to start a business. It's a whole other thing to make a sustainable profit. And it's another thing entirely to scale and grow, right?
Right. But I find that when I approach people that I already have relationships with, they're almost always willing to renegotiate or to at least have a conversation because they already have a relationship or have they have some expectation of me and they want me to deliver on it. That's not lost. There's a hiccup that has to be solved, and
exactly.
And good faith goes a long way.
At the end of the day, good faith is everything because business is built on trust, right?
Yes.
Personal relationships are built on trust. And especially when there's a crossover between business and personal relationships, like you get money that you borrow from a friend or a family member, right? You have to maintain that trust in order to maintain that relationship. And, coming back and renegotiating, look, everybody knows business is unpredictable. The economy is unpredictable. The pandemic was unexpected. Things happen to people, right? People fail with their plan. The market changes. The world changes. So anything can happen. But if you're acting with clear and consistent communication in good faith that you want to try and repay somebody, they'll almost always take the call and work with you to try and structure something.
The world is mostly good. People are mostly good. So it works out. So I have been into self-development a long time, and you must be as well. I know you from, I think, the New York Power Team.
New York Power Team, or Doug O'Brien, I think, as well, the NLP community,
right?
Gnosis community.
So, how much I think you're an NLP trainer too, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, I'm an NLP trainer and master practitioner. I'm also certified in Ericksonian hypnotherapy. So I did a really deep dive down that rabbit hole because I was really trying to master communications for business, right?
Right.
So what attracted me to NLP specifically was when I had done a business seminar workshop on sales and influence with Tony Robbins back in the early 90s. And I was taken with his energy and the presentation, but the whole concept of NLP and what was behind it and modeling success and modeling the most successful communicators and then breaking that down into discrete components that you could then, turn around and rebuild into a model of influence or sales for business, that really intrigued me. And that's what led me to go deep down that rabbit hole. So I've been at this for over 35 years now.
Well, that's exactly complementing to what I'm thinking of saying next. I'm into personal development, as are you, obviously, as is Tony Robbins. He's the king of it. He's probably the number one guy of personal development. Well, what I have found, and the reason why I developed self-help coaching, is that Tony Robbins and every other coach or self-help author, it works for like 1% of the people, like you, and 99% it doesn't, because while they're wowed, the wow fades and fades and fades until it's gone. So,
well, I love the quote. I think it was from Zig Ziglar, who said, people sometimes come and say to me, "Oh, I tried that self-help and it didn't work for me." It's like, well, neither does bathing. It didn't last. Neither does bathing. That's why we recommend it every day.
Exactly.
You could say the same about eating and exercise. Yeah. Oh, I tried to exercise once. It didn't work for me. What do you mean you tried it once? You're supposed to do it every day. Right? That's how it works. You work on yourself every day.
Right. That's the way it works. But the problem is with humans implementing that. That's the problem. What we typically need is professionals such as yourself or Tony Robbins or anyone, to help us.
Zig Ziglar, Tom Hopkins, Jim Rohn. There's so many people that I've studied with. Yeah, we need those people to remind us. And even now, today, I've been on this path for 35 years. I still go back to some of those resources. I still go to YouTube. People like Simon Sinek, areas like behavioral economics that I'm fascinated by. There's so much to learn. Neuroscience. There's so much to learn. I'm far from an expert in everything, and you can always learn more. And sometimes we learn the most from people who are not like gurus, but from people who are like normal people expressing extraordinary moments or, doing extraordinary things.
I love it. We're all about the same. We're in the same tribe, you and I, Frank. You're up in Westchester. I'm down in Brooklyn, but we're in the same tribe. Okay, so let's just take a moment to hear from our sponsor, and then we'll come right back with Frank Clark, and he's going to be talking about communications and relationship strategies.
This episode of Self-Help Coaching is brought to you by Perficio. What if you could get the results of being coached without a human coach? What if a computer could coach you? Visit www.perficio.io. That's PERFICIO.io, where you can get coached without scrutiny, judgment, or pressure.
Okay, you're listening to the Self-Help Coaching Podcast. We're with Frank Clark. Frank, how did you get started in business?
So when I was in college, I was a math major, and about, a little bit more than halfway through, I was like, well, what am I going to do after college? I need to find a job. I need to figure out what I'm going to be able to do to make money. And people were telling me, oh, if you're a math major, you could be a math teacher. And I was confident I didn't want to go into teaching, right? I wanted to be in business somehow, but I just didn't know what I could do in business. And then people were telling me, oh, you should be an actuary. They go to insurance companies and you do like these 10 actuarial exams and you determine premiums for people. And that didn't sound interesting or exciting or appealing to me. And then I sort of like learned about Wall Street, but knew nothing about finance or business or accounting or anything like that. So I was at a workshop like a recruiting seminar or workshop at the college. And I met a guy who worked in business. I think he was at a Big 6 or Big 8 accounting firm at the time now. Now they're down to the Big 4, but at the time it used to be the Big 8. And people had been telling me I should get a job on Wall Street, but I knew nothing about Wall Street. I was kind of interested in the stock market, but I didn't really know anything about business per se. So I asked him, how do I get a job on Wall Street? And he says, well, what you do is first you get a job working at a big bank or an insurance company out of college. They'll give you training. And then once you get a year's experience on your resume, you can use that to go get a job on Wall Street. So I was like, all right, well, that must be the magic formula. Because what did I know? I didn't know anything, and I didn't know who to ask. So I basically got a job at an insurance company, worked with some really smart, really nice people. Loved the people that I was working with, but the work itself taught me about finance and accounting and bookkeeping and taxes and things like that. But it wasn't where my interest was. I was, really determined to get a job like on Wall Street.
Right.
And after, a little over a year, I used that experience to get a job in equity research at Merrill Lynch, working with institutional clients. So that was kind of my gateway, as it were.
You're a perfect guy to talk to on multiple levels. The premier course that I've developed for self-help coaching is Benjamin Franklin's The Way to Wealth. And I don't know how you feel about Benjamin Franklin, but to me, I would go, no surprise. He's America's first self-made man. The Way to Wealth is like, he's the grandfather of self-help.
And yes, absolutely. The great grandfather, even,
Yeah, that's more appropriate.
The great grandfather.
And really, he started with him, and he's as acclaimed today as ever, and he deserves it. But he talks about that, finances and becoming financially independent. That's what we all want and struggle with, and too little of us are able to accomplish that. And whether a person can do it through employment, which might be rarer than with business, or the other way around. That's what we all want. No matter what our other ambitions are, we want to be financially secure and to be able to do some stuff too. So you being a person that's in finance and capital, I mean, this is a big part of what you're about, I imagine, in terms of people want money to do whatever, and you're a guy to talk to about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I definitely work with clients on financial advisory types of issues, whether that's for personal or for business. I get asked constantly questions about, investments, whether those are real estate investments or, technology or startups or things like crypto or things like investing in your own business, right? And so I had, when I started out, as I mentioned, I didn't know anything about finance or business. So I was kind of looking for a mentor. I'd heard that, when you started in the working world, you had to find a mentor, somebody who could help you shepherd you along in a career. So I was like, I had it in the back of my mind. I have to find a mentor. I have to find a mentor. I have to find a mentor. So after I, went over to Merrill Lynch, I'm like looking for this mentor, right, who's going to come along and, lift me up and shepherd my career through the, the executive ranks, et cetera. And he wasn't coming along looking for me. So I realized that, I had certain things that I'd come to Merrill Lynch to learn. And, the person who was my immediate boss was not a supportive or a good person to work with. He was, we had some serious communication challenges, let's put it that way. And so it created a lot of negativity. I mean, he had a very negative bias on the world. So it created a negative environment for me. And I was like, look, I'm here at Merrill Lynch. I know I'm with an outstanding company. I know I'm in the heart of Wall Street, and I need to take advantage of this time. So I need to either find mentors or learn what I came here to learn, which is learn how to, pick stocks. That was what my focus was on. It's like, all right, there's this stock market. Stocks go up and down, but how do you pick the ones that go up? That was kind of my intense focus. So I was in the right place. I was in equity research at Merrill Lynch as a quant, and I had all these tools and strategies for helping me identify successful stocks. And I was doing that for institutional clients. So I was learning by writing these customized computer programs how institutional investors were looking at picking portfolios of stocks based on certain criteria. And then I was very, very fortunate that I was, my office was physically located, I don't know, maybe less than 50 yards away from one of the top technical analysts on Wall Street at the time.
Literally on Wall Street?
Yeah. Well, I was in the World Financial Center, right? Which is, right. So it wasn't on Wall Street proper. It was down in Battery Park City.
Right off it.
But that whole, they call the whole financial district Wall Street.
Right,
I mean, people throw the term
I was being a little coy.
Yeah. So I never worked physically on Wall Street. I ate lunch there quite a bit. I used to walk by the stock exchange, but my point was that this guy who was like one of the best in the field of stock picking and technical analysis had recommended this book, which I bought. It was called How to Make Money in Stocks by William O'Neill. And I basically made that book into my Bible, and that book became my mentor. So I started finding my mentors in books, which I'd never been a reader, right? I was a math major because I just didn't like reading. So I forced myself to like, okay, this guy who's like a highly regarded guy on Wall Street recommends this book. And he said that was one of the best books he'd seen in his whole career on stock picking. So that meant something to me. So I've gone on and recommended that book to, I don't know, dozens or hundreds of people. I don't know how many times I've recommended that book, but I still use that strategy today for stock picking, and it's very, very effective. There is a lot of work that goes into it. You have to study the book. You have to study the markets. You have to study charts. And there's a lot more reading that I did beyond that, but the system still works to this day. And I've picked some stocks recently that have done well because I'm using the strategy.
What a testament to your character that you had the wherewithal to make a relationship with a book to be your mentor. That says so much about you. And not that you're a schizoid type personality that you can't have human relations. I'm not suggesting that. I'm suggesting that you had the wherewithal to say, this is the information, this is the stuff, this is, when I created Proficio, which is an automated virtual coaching program, the world's first self-help coach, it coaches a user to learn a course. And one of the things, it has a set coaching pattern. It's customized for the individual, certainly. But one of the things that it's sure to tell its client, the client, I call them client, which is a combination of client and student, because they're both a coaching client and a student of self-help, is to get a mentor. It's such an important, it's not like a way out. Oh yeah, get somebody else who can do your work. No, having a mentor, even if it's a book, it's something where you have a relationship where you are going to listen to the information that's imparted to you and act on it. That's a game changer.
Yeah, and by the way, it's a book, but there is a human being who wrote that book, right? William O'Neill in that case. And later I was able to find him and attend one of his seminars about stock picking and his system, and meet him in person and get him to autograph that book and tell him how, him writing that book had helped to change the course of my life. So, while he was a mentor just through the book, initially I did get to meet him and thank him in person for the impact that he had on my life, right?
That's awesome. Let's take a quick moment to hear from our sponsor, and we'll be right back with Frank Clark to hear about some more of his favorite business books.
This episode of Self-Help Coaching is brought to you by Proficio. What is the key to wealth? It's not just making money. It's not wasting it, avoiding debt and costly mistakes. To get the wealth mindset, visit www.proficio.io. That's PERFICIO.io, where you can start acting like a millionaire instead of just dreaming to be one.
You're listening to the Self-Help Coaching Podcast, and we're with Frank Clark. He's going to tell a wonderful entrepreneur with an incredible resume and experience. And now he's going to tell us about, he was just talking about O'Neill. Is that correct? O'Neill, was that the author?
William O'Neill, yes.
Right.
How to Make Money in Stocks.
And now he's going to tell us a little bit about some other favorite business books that he has.
So the day I bought that book and I had the recommendation, I was also going through a tough time at work, as I mentioned, with my boss, and I was very frustrated. So I was looking for a way out. So when I bought that book, I hadn't really gone to a bookstore looking to buy a book like ever that I can remember, other than buying college textbooks, right? So as I'm in the bookstore buying that book, asking for that book, and they put it in my hand, and I was like, looked at the price, got a little bit of sticker shock because it was like $25 or something like that. But I'm looking at the books nearby and seeing if there are other stock picking books. And then I saw some real estate books. So there was also a book with a title that attracted my attention. And I'd seen some late night commercials about, buying real estate with no money down. So this one had that kind of a title. It was How to Make It When You're Cash Poor by Hollis Norton. So when I bought that book on the stock market, I also bought that book on real estate. I'm like, okay, I'm going to learn how to make money in stocks, and I'm going to learn how to make money in real estate. So I bought two books for my first, non-college textbook book purchase, right? And then I was like, oh, I just spent $50 on these two books. I better read them and extract $50 or more worth of value. And I did, but I made them a study. So as I'm learning how the system works for stock picking, and I'm buying the newspaper and looking at the charts, I'm also starting to make phone calls and call around to find out how I can buy real estate with no money down. I lived in New York City, thought I couldn't afford a place. I didn't have a down payment, but I started getting creative using some of the strategies that I read in the book. And within about a year, I was able to find a place. Actually, I found a place that I was going to buy no money down. That didn't work out, but I managed to save enough money while living in that place, because basically I was getting a very low below market rent while living there. And then I found another place with owner financing and was able to move. And by the time I was 25, I was able to buy my first piece of real estate. So the strategies work, and you have to do the work. That is the takeaway. It's like, you can't read a book and say, well, I read that book and nothing happened. No, that's not how it works. It's like, you read the book, you learn from the years or decades of experience from somebody who's lived this, and then you go out and you try and model the steps that they took to become successful by busting your butt and doing everything that they said to do in that book. You make the phone calls, you go visit properties, you buy the newspaper, you start looking at, metrics for stocks, you start following the stock price, you start setting up systems. You have to do the work. It's not about reading the book and your life is going to get better. It's reading the book and then taking the steps that are being recommended by these brilliant people and then doing them. And then when it doesn't work, modifying your approach until you get the result that you're looking for.
Absolutely. A very common misconception today is that knowledge is power. They're missing the word applied knowledge. Applied. That's
Right.
the
Knowledge and action.
essential modifier. So that was lost somehow, and to the detriment of anyone who bought into that knowledge is power, because that's not true. If you're not taking action with the knowledge from Frank or O'Neill or whomever, then you might as well not even know it.
Exactly. And basically the knowledge that you get in the book, it's kind of like, okay, start here and do these few things and keep doing them, and that should take you in the right direction. So they're setting up like step one, go in this direction and do these 5 things, whatever it might be, right? That doesn't matter if you're trying to run a marathon, if you're trying to learn how to fly a plane, if you're trying to build a company, whatever it is. Start here, do these 5 things, and then go in that direction. Okay, great. Well, I did 5 of those things and 4 of them backfired and didn't get me the results I wanted. Okay, this is step 2 of the learning. Now you're making mistakes, and you're going to learn more by making your own mistakes than by what you read in the book. Because now you're trying to take that knowledge and put it into action. And when you put it into action, you're not going to get it precisely right the first time you try it, right? You're going to make mistakes. And the wisdom that you gain from those mistakes is going to teach you more than what you read in that whole book of somebody who, spent, 25 years of his life or 35 years of his life creating and developing that knowledge. Now you're learning from doing, and that's so valuable and so powerful.
Are you currently coaching?
Yes, I am.
No surprise. I mean, I'm a coach as well. And I can tell you're a wonderful coach. I've known you for some time, but I've never had a conversation like this with you before. And it's really,
yeah, we haven't. We've spoken like at workshops, but not deeper dive like this.
Yeah, this is great, and what a splendid guest you're turning out to be. I really appreciate it.
Who knew?
What are some strategies for raising money to start a business?
So a lot of strategies to start a company of any kind. And again, it doesn't matter if you're creating a lemonade stand or starting a blog or a coaching business, which are relatively easy to start, or if you're building an aerospace company to go to Mars, right? You start kind of in the same place, and it doesn't seem like it, but basically over the course of your life, whether you're 5 years old or 50 years old, you've developed relationships. Now that might just be with your parents, your grandparents, your aunt and uncle if you're young and haven't been out in the world. It could be the parents of your friends, it could be teachers, it could be people that you've done business with, from your auto mechanic to the guy who makes your sandwich at the deli. But there are people that in your life, and those contacts, that's the beginning of your network. Okay, your network is the most valuable asset that you have in raising capital. So the more that you build the quality of your network and the quality of the people in your network, the more access to capital that you have. So if you spend your time hanging around people who are not doing well financially, the quality of your network and the capacity to raise capital in that network is not going to be very high. If you spend all of your time surrounded by people who are successful business people, successful investment bankers or attorneys or accountants who are making 7, 8, 9 figures in their businesses, then you now have access to people and relationships with those people who can maybe either help you by investing directly or introducing you to people who can invest, because they probably also have powerful networks. So it's a network of networks. So I'll give you a book recommendation to go along with this that changed my life, which was How to Swim with the Sharks Without Getting Eaten Alive by Harvey Mackay. It's Mackay. And he really talks about and does a deep dive into the power of networking and building these relationships and understanding, as much as you can about the other person so that you have a much deeper relationship. So if I just, know your first name, we're going to have a surface level conversation, right? I meet you at a networking event. Your name's Tony. Hey, I'm Frank. How you doing? Okay, great. That's level 1. Level 2, Tony, what's your last name? Petrozza? Oh, Tony Petrozza, you're Italian? Yeah, I'm Italian too. Okay, great. Where are you from? Okay, you start to get to know a little bit about people's personality. That's kind of like a level 2 conversation. When you start to get into level 3 or level 4, it's like, oh, where'd you go to school? Did you know so-and-so? Yeah, he was my best friend. Are you kidding me? Oh, I grew up with him. Okay. You start getting like really connected and developing like a deeper basis for relationship. So in developing that network and relationship, you want to try and get to those level 3, 4, 5 types of conversations. And then you start to have like a trusted friend and trusted friendship, even if you haven't done business together. But if you lay the groundwork with that communication, developing those level 3, 4, 5 conversations, then even if that person doesn't become a capital source for you, they might be more inclined to refer you to somebody who may be able to make an investment in your business because they know, like, and trust you, right? So all of business is based on knowing, liking, and trusting people. And that goes from, again, the lemonade stand, when mom trusts you enough and to let you sit out in front of the house and on your own, unsupervised, with the cups in the pitcher or whatever, to the global banking system, where we had the meltdown in 2008. And what happened that led to the collapse was when some of those big entities started failing, like Lehman Brothers and Bear Stearns. People realized that on the global scale, the biggest banks in the world couldn't trust each other to fulfill their commitments to contracts. So there was an erosion or a dissolution of trust, which led to a global economic collapse. So trust is the basis for everything.
I mentioned that action is everything. Another thing that is everything are relationships.
Absolutely.
And what everyone knows or should know, that trust is the most important part of a relationship. On whatever that kind of relationship is, there has to be some level of trust. And the more you count on them, the higher that trust requirement is. Primary,
like, obviously it's true also in your personal relationships, right? With your spouse, your parents, your kids, or whatever. I mean, if you don't show up for your son's baseball game, it's not a big deal as long as you've communicated that. But if you never show up for your son's soccer game or whatever, you're going to start to have an erosion of trust. Now, some people may not be able to participate in their kids' sports because they are working internationally or whatever, but that will impact your relationship. So how are you going to make that up to your son or daughter? Or in a marital relationship, right? If you're in a relationship and you never invest in the marriage, never invest time into the marriage, you're going to have an erosion of that trust and erosion of that relationship. And that's, what often leads to separation and divorce. It's hard work.
Absolutely. Relationships are hard work. And a primary, today is the age of social media, right? And Facebook is the biggest one. A primary reason, I have Facebook for a number of reasons. Indeed, we're Facebook friends. But a primary reason is to have a network, literally a network of what? Well, whatever. But, I know I'm friends with NLP coaches like myself, businessmen, you're both, all kinds of people that I'm interested in and people that I have relationships with. But all of them are my network. Right. And it's invaluable to me. So social media, in that it offers me these networks, is invaluable to me because, that's a critical thing in getting along in the world and doing things in the world.
Because what is it? It's essentially a platform, right? That's global. So it gives you access to basically potentially everybody in the world who has an electronic device, whether that be a laptop computer, a cell phone, or an iPad, or something else, that you can reach people in South America, South Africa, or Australia, New Zealand, or the United States, or Europe, just as easily, globally. So, but it's also a platform where you can begin to know, like, and trust people, even though they're a mile away or tens of thousands of miles away. Okay? I was on a social media platform last week with an astronaut who I never would have met in a million years if I hadn't been, on that particular platform. And I got to ask him a couple of questions, which was, extraordinary. I mean, how many people get the chance to talk to an astronaut, right?
That's out of this world, Frank.
Literally.
Okay, a quick word from our sponsor, and we'll come back with our final segment with Frank Clark.
This episode of Self-Help Coaching is brought to you by Perficio. People start something, then something comes up, or they need a break or even a vacation, and they often never get back on track. Perficio is designed to allow all of this. Visit www.perficio.io. That's PERFICIO.io, where you can live your life as you learn and make progress toward your life-changing goals.
You're listening to the Self-Help Coaching Podcast with Frank Clark, a wonderful guest. And now we're in our final segment. I want to hear about some business news, some tech news, or let me ask you a direct question, Frank. How do you grow a business during COVID-19, the pandemic? This is a serious situation, quite a modifier to say the least.
Absolutely. So some people think that, with the global pandemic, that every business must have been doing terrible. And so many companies, we've heard the stories of companies going out of business forever, favorite restaurants, or certainly like the entertainment business has struggled, from Broadway to filmmaking to, music venues are struggling, musical artists, actors, people who are, stage hands or do props or things like that. So many people thrown out of work, so many industries, the airlines, the hotel, hospitality industry, such devastation. But did everybody have a terrible year last year? No. I mean, do you think Pfizer is doing well selling their vaccines, or Moderna, or Johnson & Johnson, right? It's been a boon. They're selling, billions of vaccines. So I don't know. I haven't looked at their P&L for the last year, but certainly there are industries and individual businesses that have thrived during COVID. My personal experience, I can tell you, the golf business has exploded because it was an outdoor, socially distanced, recreational exercise activity when gyms were closed, when indoor things were closed, and when you couldn't play things like basketball, or you certainly couldn't go to a bowling alley. So what can you do for entertainment when you're locked up in your house for a year? Well, you can go out on the golf course, or in our case on the golf range, and hit a bucket of balls, right? Work on your, see some people. Now, we had to take extra steps to make sure that people were safe, right? With masking up, with extra sanitation protocols, with limiting number of people at the facility, with increasing the socially distance of it, and with maintaining people having to wait in their cars if we got full, et cetera, and having a communication waiting list. So it was a lot of extra work that we had to do, but our business, grew last year over 2019. So we had a positive growth year. The medical device company, okay, because of COVID, they were able to get a fast track from the FDA under emergency use authorization to treat critically ill COVID-19 patients back in April. So as a result, they became for the first time available for distribution in the US, even though they were available in more than 60 other countries. But they were able to step in and start saving lives of people who were in ICUs who were dying of COVID by helping to remove the inflammatory mediators that were causing the cytokine storm and the multiple organ failure. So the device has actually been used now in over 5,000 people. And the stock of the company essentially tripled last year relative to where it was in 2019. Now it's gone a little bit down since then, but the awareness about the company has also exploded, and they're starting to get traction on some of their other applications in cardiac surgery and in other ICUs, and expanding their global footprint by introducing more countries and more regulatory authorizations in some of those countries. So there are businesses who thrive. And essentially, that becomes a question to some degree of, were you proactive or reactive to the situation? Did you wait around for something to happen so that your restaurant could reopen? Or did you pivot and find out a way to make money by doing takeout since everybody is at home? And did you restructure your business around takeout and around delivery so that you could still, keep your employees employed, still deliver food to people who liked your food, and grow your business. So there are many restaurants that grew exponentially by pivoting. So when something hits like a pandemic, do you just give up, or do you have to pivot and figure out how to do it? As an entrepreneur, you always have to pivot. You always have to reinvent yourself. So that opportunity exists for every individual, certainly, if not for every business.
I'm very fortunate. I have a self-development company. My company, Auxilium, people have asked me how COVID affects me. Well, for me, it's basically irrelevant. It will only help it because it's an e-commerce company. It's a digital technology company. So that's perfect in the age of a pandemic or COVID.
Exactly.
But for me personally, or for my company, it's irrelevant because of the things I just described. It's changing times, man. You've got to be able to roll with both with technology and the environment, the realities of the environment. Those are critical factors in business. I mean, very often businesses follow trends. They look for trends and they follow them, and that's because that's a factor. Well, environment is a very important factor. There are a number you don't give out loans, but you're in the capital investment business though, aren't you?
So I invest my own capital. I have raised capital for my own companies, but I'm not an investment banker, not currently anyway. I have worked as an investment banker.
Right.
I have, helped companies or advised companies on how to raise capital. I've done a lot of work with startups in helping them create pitch decks or advise them on negotiating or term sheets or how to go about raising capital. So I do that type of work as part of my consulting practice.
You really got quite an impressive resume. I mean, I'm not blowing smoke, man. It's very impressive. Okay,
keep busy.
Yes, certainly. We're at the end. Frank, do you have any final remarks for our audience?
So yeah, whatever it is that you want to do, you can do it, right? If you don't know how to do it, find somebody who's done it before and then model their success. Success leaves clues, right? And people leave those clues behind, and they're doing it now and making it more accessible and easier to get to than ever before in the history of the world. So you can find books, you can find podcasts, you can, like this one here, right? You can find webinars, you can find YouTube videos. There are amazing speakers out there. There's TED Talks, right? People like Simon Sinek, or, we've talked about some of the other folks, Zig Ziglar, Tony Robbins, that if you need inspiration, you get in front of these people and you don't feel inspired, do it again the next day and the next day until you get to the point where you find a speaker or you find a book or you find something that lights your fire and get out and do it. Don't just expect that you read a book and it's going to change your life. Follow the strategies, follow the map, pick up the phone, go out and drive around, talk to people. Who do you know? How do you do this? How do you do that? Ask people who are smarter than yourself how they would do something. Get advice. Say in the money raises business, sometimes when you ask for money, you get advice. And when you ask for advice, you get money. So be smart about how you go about your approach. Tony, from Ericksonian hypnosis, sometimes the indirect approach to communication is the most effective, right?
Certainly.
So what's an indirect strategy that you can use to get to the same result? But if you want to do anything, and Napoleon Hill said, if the mind of man can conceive it and believe it, it can achieve it, whatever it is. So
That's
Thinking Rich by Napoleon Hill, another phenomenal book. And the last thing I'll say is, we're on Zoom right now. So Zoom existed, more than a year ago. It's been around for a while, and it's been steadily growing in traction. But last year during COVID, it exploded because all of a sudden everybody was working from home virtually and doing video calls on Zoom, and the stock price was up something like 500%. So if you did nothing else last year and you had been attuned to stock movement, you could have bought Zoom stock and increased your 401k by 500%, or your IRA or whatever, if you had a self-directed. But if you hadn't done the research, didn't know how to pick stocks, and you didn't know how to do a self-directed IRA, and you didn't know how to invest, or you hadn't saved up any money, then you couldn't have taken advantage of that opportunity. So, and the last thing I'll say is Clubhouse, which is a phenomenal social media platform. That's the one I was referencing the other day when I said I was on the phone on a call with an astronaut. It was through Clubhouse. Didn't exist a year ago. It's only been around for, I think, about a year. And Now it has $1 billion valuation. So how do you go from a zero to $1 billion in 1 year during a global pandemic? So there are strategies. You need to like immerse yourself in some of the strategies, get around the people, get where it's good, and let some of it rub off onto you, but then go do the work.
Wonderful. Self-improvement. Great stuff. How do they contact you? If somebody wants to contact you, Frank, how do they do that?
So you can find me on social media through my Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram profiles. My picture, if you're looking, because there are a lot of Frank Clarks out there, my picture is me, not that picture, but my face, but on the billboard in Times Square when I got to ring the opening bell on NASDAQ a few years ago for the medical device company. So see a Frank Clark with a picture on Times Square billboard, that's my icon.
That's great. And is there anything to look forward to in the near future for Frank Clark and your interests?
Besides global domination, no. If you're in the New York tri-state area and you want to help us feed families in need, love to get you involved. If you go to NYCBasketBrigade.com, you can make a donation, you can volunteer. It's something that we do. We've fed thousands and thousands of people over the years. Been doing that for I guess over a decade now, and it's just a fantastic way to give back. And this year, especially with the pandemic, there's so many more people in need than ever before. So if you can donate to nycbasketbrigade.com/donate, or if you want to get involved, or if you have people in the food industry that that can make donations or corporate sponsors, I'd love to talk to you. And you can get in touch with us through nycbasketbrigade.com.
I was just about to mention that one, so fantastic. That's great. But I will say that that's one of the great things that you've done that's really impressed me about you. But also, listeners, reviewers, check out NewYorkPowerTeam.com. That's how I come to know Frank, and it's just something that's really influenced by Tony Robbins. I know Joseph. I think Joseph is your partner in that, if I'm not mistaken.
So Joseph Varghese is my partner in that. I started that in 1993 after attending Tony Robbins' initial work. I got inspired by it, and I was wondering, okay, how can I stay in touch with this energy? Because again, once the motivation doesn't last, right? You go to the seminar, a week later, you're kind of back in your life and back to normal. Exactly. But I was thinking to myself, I want a mastermind. And remember, I'd been on the search for first a mentor and then like a network, right? I was trying to build a network. So I'm like, okay, let me find a network of other people who are connected to, other mentors and expand and grow my network. So I started out to stay in touch with folks that I met at the Tony Robbins seminar, but then I was going to a lot of other seminars. I was going to seminars by Deepak Chopra. I was going to seminars by people like T. Harv Eker. And I was like, okay. And I was going to all the NLP workshops. I'm like, let me bring them in too. Let's just make it, anybody who wants to learn and grow and develop, they can learn and grow and develop through that community. And essentially we were an in-person organization only, but now because of the pandemic, we're in the process of pivoting. I spoke to Joseph last night, and we've set up a site on Clubhouse. So if you're an iPhone user or an iPad user and you're on Clubhouse, right, which is only by invitation at this point, but it's coming soon, and you can probably find somebody in your world. If you network hard enough, you can probably find somebody that you can get an invitation to. We have a group on Clubhouse called Power Team, and we're just building that up. So we want to find content creators. We want to find people in the self-help community that want to do shows, podcasts, things like this. Tony, if you want to do a show with us on Power Team on Clubhouse, we'd love to invite you to, bring some of your content over there so that we can all connect in a global network of people who are motivated to improve their personal lives, improve their professional lives, grow their businesses, and most importantly, make a positive difference in the world community. And I'm a big believer in making a difference through business. So I also have another club on there called Startup Con Live, where again, we're teaching best practices and strategies to business people through social media on Clubhouse with powerful conversations with business leaders.
Frank, I've got to say with the utmost sincerity, if guests get better than you, I'll be amazed, because you have been an extraordinary
Thank you.
perfect guest. I would say you've been, quite frankly, you're a perfect guest. I love everything that you brought to this interview on every level.
Very
I
kind,
really,
appreciate it.
really appreciate it. Thank you so much. Say goodbye to the audience, Frank.
All right, so long, everybody. We'll see you on Clubhouse or social media or hopefully in person someday, right? And go after your dreams. Go get them, baby.
Thanks, everyone, for joining us. And remember, every one of us is responsible for ourselves, and we all can use some help. Thank you, and we'll see you on the next podcast.
Thank you, Tony. I appreciate you.
You're welcome, sir.
Thank you for tuning in to the Self-Help Coaching Podcast, where insights, attitudes, and methods for success get illuminated. Learn what leaders and change workers have done and are doing now to create magnificent futures. Remember to visit our website at self-helpcoaching.com and enjoy even more great episodes like this one. Again, while you're here, subscribe to us via your favorite network. We look forward to seeing you next time on the Self-Help Coaching Podcast.